Hello, my name is Matthew, and it's fruitcake weather. Um, this time of year, every autumn, I always really enjoy picking up Truman Capote and reading some of his short stories. And this time of year, I always go back and revisit A Christmas Memory. It's one of my favorite short stories by Truman Capote. And it's just this sweet, tender-hearted, loving, warm story about a little boy named Buddy. It's autobiographical, but our character's name is Buddy. And him and his old friend, one of his relations, Miss Sook, and her little dog Queenie, share a Christmas memory. We're told a very sweet memory that they've had. Um, and Miss Sook, this time of year, late November, will wake up one morning and breathe in that autumn air, and she'll announce, "It's fruitcake weather." And that means that Buddy and Miss Sook get to have their annual funny adventure of um, baking fruitcakes that they can mail off to all of their friends. And the little boy is very young. Miss Sook is older, but has a childlike heart, and so they don't have very much money. And there's a little adventure that goes along with them collecting their money and figuring out how to get their ingredients and going through their coin purse and adding up all of the money. And Miss Sook is superstitious. They add up all of their money and they have, I believe, $13, and they have to throw away a penny because 13 is unlucky. But we get this description of these fruitcakes, and every time I read it, I get a hankering. I just want to have one of their fruitcakes, even though I don't like fruitcakes. I'll read the ingredient list. Um, Tomorrow, the kind of work I like best begins. Buying cherries and citron, ginger and vanilla, and canned Hawaiian pineapple, rinds and raisins and walnuts and whiskey, and oh, so much flour, butter, so many eggs, spices, flavorings. Why, we'll need a pony to pull the buggy home. So there's excitement and joy and wonder with just grocery shopping, picking up the ingredients. And they're making these fruitcakes to mail off to their friends. But these aren't school friends or um, fruitcakes for their family or neighbors or anything like that. Instead, it's people that live all over the country. Some people that they just like President Roosevelt, or travelers who just happened through their town, pen pals. So these just really interesting relationships that they've kept over the years, and each year they mail off 30 fruitcakes. They soak them in whiskey. We have this great scene of an apparent mean old man that lives in town that sells the illegal whiskey, and they knock on his door and he answers and he sees this funny old woman and this little boy asking to buy a bottle of whiskey, and he laughs at them, says, "Which one of you is a whiskey drinker?" And they say it's for their fruitcakes. They have to they have to soak their fruitcakes in whiskey. And he grumbles and he comes back with his bottle, upset that they're going to waste good whiskey on fruitcakes. A little old lady takes out her purse and starts pouring change, pennies and dimes. Dimes are described as the most cheerful coin. And we just get this great character study of this mean old man, funny old woman pouring this change into his hand, and he pours it back. He gives her back the change and says, "I tell you what, send me one of those fruitcakes when you're done." And so the little boy and the old woman leave, and the old woman says, like, "That's a very nice man. We're gonna put extra raisins in his fruitcake." Absolutely lovely. They bake their fruitcakes. We get this scene where the old woman and the little boy decide to share a little nip of whiskey. They get caught by the other relatives in the house. uh, and they chastise. It's a really sad moment because the old woman gets yelled at and she becomes very sad. But the relatives come in and they're shouting these very southern insults. One of them says, "Ruination." But the little boy cheers up his friend at the end of the night while she's still crying into her pillow and says, "Well, tomorrow we have to go get our Christmas tree." And that brightens her up because she knows where they can get the most fantastic Christmas tree, twice as tall as a little boy, so he can't reach the star at the top of the tree. And it's farther in the woods than they've ever gone before. And so the next morning, they trek off on another adventure and they find the most perfect Christmas tree. And they cut it down and drag it out of the woods like a kill. They have it in their buggy, and different people are pulling up on the side of the street offering them money. And the old woman says, "I wouldn't take $1 for this tree." And so they set the tree up, and for ornaments, again, they don't have very much money, so they make them by hand. And they draw out cats and fish and apples on colored paper, and they color them in, and they cut them out and fill the whole tree with these little things that they've made. They collected cotton in August that they would shred up and cover the tree with. Um, there's one of my favorite little bits of description with all the colored lights, and it would shine like a Baptist window. And then we get the night before when they're talking about the gifts that they are going to exchange, and the old woman always wants to get little Buddy a bicycle, and every year she can't. And the little boy wants to get things for her, and he can't. And again, this is another year where they have dreams of all the gifts that they're going to give each other, but instead they make kites, and they're the best kite flyers, this old woman and little boy. They can get a kite flying when there's not any wind to be seen. And we have the next morning, and they wake up, and the little boy is banging on the stovepipe, so they're making all this ruckus to get the rest of the family up so they can enjoy their Christmas morning. We get a great scene of the relations coming into the house again, into the room again, and they just wanted to kill him. They kill this little boy and the woman, but they couldn't because it was Christmas. And he gets typical un-Christmas-like, un-Wonderment-like gifts, like shirts and socks and maybe a subscription to a religious magazine. But the little boy and the old woman, they exchange their kites. And we find that eventually he had to move on. He had to move on with his life, and the woman stayed at the home. And they kept a letter correspondence. They would write back and forth, and she would mail him change, money to go to the theater, to go to the movie theater. And she would ask him to tell her all about it. And eventually we find out the little dog died, got hit by a horse. The old woman in a letter mentions that he didn't feel anything. And finally, the old woman starts suffering dementia. She's getting out of bed less and less. The boy's already moved on, so he's getting these letters in the mail less and less frequently. Until one day, the old woman has died. And this wonderful, joyous, warm memory that he has is now distinctly a part of his past. There's no more chance of reliving or seeing this woman that he loved and her little dog. And he talks about looking up in the sky and seeing two kites entangled on their way to heaven. And like the best stories that we read and are told and tell, it's full of so many emotions. It has wonder and excitement and joy and sadness and loneliness and abandonment. Um, this is a memory. This is something that is gone and will never come back, except that we can revisit the story, this wonderful, wonderful story, A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. I absolutely love it, and I read it every year. Um, Let me know if you like this story, if you've read it, or other Truman Capote stories that you enjoy. I would love to hear. And and again, right now it's fruitcake weather, so let me know if you bake fruitcakes. Um, leave a comment if you would like, and thank you for watching, and take care.